Uh, I guess first of all, let's start with some conversation about your family.
Sure.
I read in your online bio that your father was a naval aviator, and tell us a little bit about what he did for his service.
Sure. Dad was a commander in the Navy. We were stationed all over the continental U.S., from the East Coast to the West Coast. Our longest term of duty actually was in Omaha, Nebraska. He was stationed at the Strategic Air Command there, which is odd for a Navy fella to be in the middle of the country. Our last station was on Guam before he retired. Dad was a naval aviator, flew 2 different tours over Vietnam off of aircraft carriers, had over 250 landings, takeoff and landings on aircraft carriers there. He was a great man, and it was a really great life growing up. But he retired, and we moved back to my mom's hometown, Tahlequah, Oklahoma. That's where her mom, my grandmother, was living, and so we went back there for my high school years.
What did your mother do professionally?
Mom was a teacher. She began college at Oklahoma College for Women, and then finished at Northeastern in Tahlequah. My dad was a Texan and went to school at what is now Texas State University down in San Marcos. But she was a professional school teacher in California and in Oklahoma. And in fact, my 2 sisters, I have 2 younger sisters, they both were school teachers as well. So many generations of teachers in my family.
My mother's a retired teacher as well. Yeah. What values did your parents instill in you?
Boy, lots and lots of good values. Mom and Dad, they were very serious about living lives of integrity and honesty, being kind to other people, reaching out and helping those that we could help. Always very sensitive to other people, and that's how my sisters and I were raised. We saw that in our parents, and we heard that from our parents. We were also a very church-going family. Mom and Dad raised us. We went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Anytime the church doors were open, we were there.
Church of Christ going up?
That's right.
And what did they teach you as far as like work? What kind of a work ethic did they instill in you?
Let's just say we have all developed a type A personality. It was, work is important. It's not the only thing, but work is important. And when there is a job to be done, you're to do it, and you're to do it well.
Very good. What is it that brings you the most joy in life?
Wow, that's a great question. I think it is family and friends, and being around people that really I care about and I love. And I say that also in a very Christian context, to have relationships with people who care about you and about God. It's just a really special thing. I love our kids growing up. We played a lot of ping pong in the garage. We played a lot of basketball on the driveway. My son and I did a lot of rock climbing together, indoor and outdoor. We'd go on father-son long weekend ski trips to Colorado and New Mexico during the winter. It's great to go on a date with my daughter, both to a nice dinner and then to a play on campus, the Valentine Cabaret, every February near her birthday. And boy, I am married to absolutely the best woman in the world.
Is your college sweetheart?
Yeah, she is. She was my college sweetheart. She was also the homecoming queen at Northeastern, so I really married above myself. Darla is great.
What was the most challenging moment in your life, and how did you respond to it?
Boy, Mark, that's a really great question. I think in a lot of ways, I think in a lot of ways, God really has protected me from things that I couldn't handle. I think that in my life, I've had some of the some tragedies that are not different than what other people experience as well. My dad passed away about 6 years ago, very suddenly. Didn't know that it was coming by any stretch of the imagination, but had no regrets in my relationship with Dad. And so our memories of Dad are of a very vital man who had a zest for life. And those are wonderful memories to have. But I think in the aftermath of that, helping Mom cope with things. In fact, I remember getting the call from Mom about 2:30 in the morning. The paramedics were still there at the house in Tahlequah, and they said they could not revive him. And so I talked to the paramedics and then talked back to Mom and said, boy, they've tried. You need to let them go. I get in the car, and I drive back to Tahlequah. I get there probably 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm realizing that, life has totally changed for me, but for these other people that I am seeing, life hasn't changed for them. The world just goes on. So I arrive at my mom and dad's house expecting it to be a very sad, somber, lonely place. And I pull into the driveway, and Mom has probably 6 or 7 couples from church that have been on a vigil with her all night since they got word Dad had passed away. And it was great to see that kind of love and family. And that's one of the things that makes church and Christianity so important to us. I've been in some fairly stressful work situations, but like everybody else has as well. And so, I've had a life that I've been able to handle with, I think, God's grace and with family and friends that I've been able to deal with the issues that have come up.
Thank you for that. What are the highlights of your personal faith story?
I was a lifer. I was raised in a household, and we went to church all the time. I think that my faith really grew following my college experience when I went and lived in Kingston, Jamaica for a year. I attended the University of the West Indies on a Rotary International Scholarship and connected with a brand new church plant there. And not knowing anybody, not having any friends when I arrived there at this foreign place, it was great to have friends that became close friends very quickly and had a real common bond with our faith. And so it was during that year where, yes, I studied economics on the graduate level some, but really I studied life much more. And that was a real special spiritual journey for me. It brought me back with some different ideas and understandings. I mean, it really gave me the opportunity to realize that all these things that I had taken for granted for so long, I really shouldn't take for granted. And so I really grew spiritually during that time. That was a very special year for me.
Very good. How does your belief system influence your work life?
The good news is my faith system and my work life, they're so very compatible because I think it's the right thing to find work that you love and are passionate about and then to work hard at it. And I think that's a very spiritual approach to life. You hear professional athletes sometimes talk about they can't believe they're getting paid for doing this thing that they love. Well, don't tell my bosses, the trustees, but sometimes I think the same thing. I mean, I get to be at a place that I love, a place that has become home to me. I mean, Oklahoma Christian has become my home, and I get paid to do something that I really enjoy doing. When you can find that, I think on this world, you've got it made.
Very good. And what do you enjoy doing away from the office?
My wife has gotten me into running some. Over the last few years, I said I would never run because I saw these guys that I thought were older, and now it turns out they're my age, whose knees had gone bad because of running, and so I was never going to run. Back about 4.5 years ago, Darla was beginning to train to be on a relay team for the Memorial Marathon, and she convinced me to do it. And sometimes she feels like she's created a monster because I love getting out and running. Although I tend to like to run inside on a treadmill where I can be watching sports or news at the same time that I'm doing it. So I mean, that's something I enjoy. Almost anything that my kids are involved in, I love doing that as well. You know, whether it's rock climbing with my son, whether it's playing ping pong or basketball, or just playing board games with my daughter Abby. I love that as well. And travel is a great thing.
That's great. What is one thing about you that most people don't know?
When I was a senior in college, I had the chance to go on Semester at Sea. That was a program at that time associated with the University of Pittsburgh. I got on a Trailways bus in Tahlequah on West Downing Street, what we called the 4-lane in Tahlequah. I got on this bus, changed buses about 5 times, and ended up in Seattle, Washington 62 hours later. I've gotten a lifetime of bus travel out of the way in the span of 62 hours. Got on a ship, went around the world in 100 days, and had some great adventures in about 13 different countries. But probably the one that I would cite would be early one morning, myself and some buddies. We were in Alexandria, Egypt. We got up very, very early, well before first light, and climbed one of the smallest of the 3 great pyramids there in Giza, and actually were there to see the sunrise come up.
Cool. Sounds very nice. How do you feel about the progress OC has made thanks to previous leaders?
Boy, OC's progress has been absolutely remarkable. One of the most gratifying things is to have alums come back to campus that haven't been here a few years, and they walk onto campus and they are awestruck by how this place looks physically. I mean, there are trees that didn't exist not too many years ago. Lawson Commons with the Freedy Centennial Clock Tower and the McGraw Pavilion, that's beautiful. The students have great housing. I have a good friend that about 8 years ago dropped her son off as a freshman in school, and she actually cried all the way back home to Tahlequah because she was leaving him in a room that she didn't think was very habitable. And then contrast that with a year later, she brought him back for his sophomore year. She moved him into the dormitory, and she looked around and she thought to herself, and then told me later, boy, this is so nice, I could live in this room. And all that has happened really because of, I think God's providence, but also some great leaders that this institution has had, and great supporters that we've had as well. My predecessor, Mike O'Neill, did some very special things that really he was uniquely gifted to be prepared to do. And prior to Mike, Al Branch, serving as president for a short period of time, took us through a very, very important time. Kevin Jacobs, the president prior to Alfred. Kevin connected in a very special way with our students. Terry Johnson was the president prior to Kevin. For the longest time, Terry was the youngest president of a 4-year institution in the nation. I mean, I think for a number of years. And he and Marty, they connected with people off campus, and she with students in very, very special ways. And then James O'Baird was our second president. He had the task, and I think it was pretty Herculean in a lot of ways, to move this campus from Bartlesville, where it began in 1950, to this present location in 1958. And he connected with the business and civic community in a way that has really set the path for us. Our first president, L.R. Wilson, beginning the institution, how difficult must that have been? So I've had great predecessors in this role that have done great things.
That's great. When it comes to OC, of what are you most proud?
Boy, there are a lot of things that I'm really proud about this place, but I think probably the thing that really takes the cake for me here, I mean, this is an institution where students can come and get an absolutely first-rate educational experience. In the classroom and outside the classroom, our faculty are second to none. and they care about the students, and they connect with the students on campus and off campus in very, very meaningful ways. Our staff is very dedicated. They go above and beyond the call. Our campus is a beautiful campus now, very functional, does special things. Our athletes, our student athletes, boy, they achieve in so many ways. We're currently the reigning champion in 2 different sports, men's tennis and men's cross country. We've just been accepted by the NCAA to begin moving into the process to become a Division II school, so we can be competing with the University of Central Oklahomans and others. But really, probably the thing that I am most proud of about Oklahoma Christian is historically, over the years and over the decades and even today, this place changes lives. I mean, students come in, they receive great educations, but they also are given the opportunity to realize that when they leave here, it's more than just making a living, it's also making a life. And I think this place inspires individuals to go out and make a difference in the world disproportionately to other universities and colleges. So this place really makes lives and makes a difference.
What is your vision for the university? I.e., what are some of your goals for OC?
Yeah. Well, this place is doing so many things well, but I do have some specific goals. I have kind of 3 catchphrases for this institution. One, Oklahoma Christian is home. This is the place, not unlike the home that many of our students and faculty and staff grew up in or wanted to grow up in, where they came and they learned and they grew and they took risks, and they knew and learned that they could do things that they didn't realize that they could do before. And they go off into the world to make a real difference. But they long to come back here. They long to come back home to reconnect with those that have made a great difference in their lives. So OC is home, but OC also grows. This past fall, we had about 1,850 undergraduate students, about 350 graduate students, for a total of, somewhere around 2,200 students. And by the way, of our 1,850 students, 80% live on campus. That's a pretty remarkable number. There are very few universities anywhere that have that kind of residential community. And that provides us opportunities to do lots and lots of great things, including develop really deep relationships. But we are going to grow. We are going to go to 2,200 undergraduate students in the next few years. We're going to grow our graduate numbers from 350 upwards to 800. So I think within the next 5 years, we're going to have 3,000 total students here that are a part of Oklahoma Christian. We can do that. We've got the size and the capacity and the space. We're going to have to change a few things, but we will keep the integrity of this residential Christian private institution where people get a first-class educational experience and life experience at the same time. But OC is also mission. So OC is home, OC grows, and OC is mission. You can get a great education in a lot of different places. I think you can get a great education down in Norman, a great education in Stillwater, a great education 3 miles north of here on the UCO campus. But you get even more here at Oklahoma Christian. A student that comes here learns not just about things, but really how to live life. And OC is mission. You get a spiritual component that you just can't get in other places. And that's, I think, what flavors the lives of the people that leave this place. And that's always going to be of critical importance to our mission here at Oklahoma Christian.
We still doing good on time for a little bit longer?
Yeah, you bet.
Great.
I'm talking way too long, probably.
No,
so
you're doing fine. What are some challenges that OC faces?
Boy, there are a myriad of challenges, although I might like to really think of them as opportunities, really. One of the challenges that we have that we really need to think deeply about and respond well to is how do we fit competitively with other opportunities that students leaving high school have. This is a whole different environment than even 10 years ago, and certainly 20 or 25 years ago. We've always had competitors in terms of public institutions of higher education. We've always had competitors of private institutions and other Church of Christ colleges like us. But we're seeing increasing opportunities for students to do other things, whether it's to learn a trade in a very high-quality way with one of the, Votex or technical schools like that. We see the rise of the for-profits as well. The internet. I mean, people can take free classes in a lot of ways online and get a very high-quality education. And so that's one of the real issues that we are going to need to deal with in the long term, but also in the short term. Now, what we have done is we want to make sure that we don't price ourselves out of the market. We want to be very sensitive to the cost for students coming to Oklahoma Christian. 45% of our students, undergraduate, come to us from the state of Oklahoma. We're proud of that, and we don't want to make ourselves so expensive that they can't come. Now, I'm also proud of the fact that over 80% of our graduates, when they finish here, actually stay in Oklahoma. So we're kind of the inverse brain drain. We are bringing smart minds and hardworking, ethical people here to the workforce in Oklahoma, and we're proud of that. But we made the decision back in February that going into this new school year that begins this next month, that we were going to hold our prices steady. We were not going to increase those. In fact, the reality is we did away with our fees. We rolled that into our tuition. We dropped some of our prices in terms of housing just by a little bit. And we've also told our students that they can take more hours beginning next year for the same price than they could in previous years. So we've really even lowered our prices. When a student takes a look at Oklahoma Christian and then factors in the financial aid, the scholarships that we provide, we are very close to a number of the other public institutions in the state of Oklahoma. And we are thousands of dollars less than some of the other private institutions in the state of Oklahoma. And so it's going to be very important to us that we provide a high-quality educational experience at a very reasonable price, because we want to be a strong, strong value for our students. So that's probably one of the biggest issues that we're going to be facing going forward.
Excellent. What's your view of leadership?
You know, I've had the opportunity to see all sorts of leadership attributes. I have worked for 3 university presidents and worked very closely, not for, but with a 4th university president. My predecessor here, Dr. Mike O'Neill at Oklahoma Christian. Before coming to Oklahoma Christian about 9.5 years ago, I was at Northeastern in Tahlequah, where I initially worked for President Roger Webb, who then came to UCO. I worked for Dr. Larry Williams, who was the next president there, who was a vice president at UCO. And one of our close mentors was Dr. Don Betts, who is now the president at UCO. Each of those men had, I think, very, very strong leadership skills expressed in different ways. But what I saw in all of them was a real concern for the students, and I've really picked up on that, and I understand that very well. I think a leader today has to be very willing to listen, has to make sure that he or she hears from a number of different people and viewpoints, and helps create communication and collaboration among individuals and among departments and areas. That's just very, very important. But a leader also has to have honesty and integrity. One of the things that we say a lot around here is we do not overpromise and underdeliver. I mean, it's just really important to me that we speak the truth and we don't hype things in such a way that that misleads or is inappropriate. So don't overpromise, and make sure that you deliver more than what you promise.
Very good. How can an organization such as yours foster better leadership in the nation?
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think we foster lots of great leadership among our young people leaving here. We have hundreds of students every year that during their spring break or fall break or summer break, rather than taking time off, they actually go somewhere and do mission and service work, whether it's Honduras or Ghana or St. Louis even. And we even have students that do things in inner city Oklahoma City to help others. I mean, leadership and changing the world is not just theoretical around here. It is actually where the rubber meets the road. People are engaged in those things. We have some faculty members that not only teach about how to do that, but they go out and demonstrate how you make a difference in the world. And that's really what we're all about here at Oklahoma Christian.
You've also got programs like the Summer Honors Program.
We do.
That's a terrific program.
Boy, and the Summer Honors Program just completed this past weekend. Dr. Scott Lamascus has led out on that, and I spoke to the group of students that came in last weekend, 70 students from all around the nation, and boy, they were bright and outgoing, and they have the chance to have some experiences with faculty that's really, second to none. My guess is that we're going to find most of those 70 participants in the Summer's Honors program this last week are going to be full-time students here in the next year or 2 or 3. And it's going to be great for them, and I know it's going to be great for us.
Very good. I saw in your bio some things that you're doing, as far as in the community. What are a couple things that you'd highlight out of your community service?
Wow. Well, I have really loved over the last few years, probably 6 or 7 years, really, being involved in the Edmond Area Chamber of Commerce. It's been great for me to meet folks and make friends. I think Ken Moore and his staff do such a good job with the Edmond Chamber of Commerce. I think that's really probably one of the programs that other chambers of commerce ought to look at when they want to figure out how to do things well, because they have done a great job, and they've really done a great job engaging the community as well. I have really enjoyed my participation in Rotary as well.
Good organization.
It is a great organization. Boy, it does good stuff here locally, but does great stuff around the world as well. Now, in this role that I'm in also, it gives me the opportunity to visit with a lot of alums and visit a lot of churches of Christ in Oklahoma and outside of Oklahoma. In fact, I was just in Amarillo yesterday. I had the chance to preach and visit with alumni and current students and students that are about to come here as freshmen in the next few weeks. I was down in Dallas a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to be back in Fort Worth in a few weeks. And so one of the great things that this role offers me is the chance to go out and visit with folks. And I'm going to take real advantage of that as well.
Very good. How do you approach fundraising? I know from your bio you had a pretty successful, you have a pretty successful history about it. How do you approach it?
I think probably the 3 greatest fears that people have in life are 1, public speaking, 2, handling live snakes, and 3, asking somebody for money. And I have not been involved in handling live snakes, but I do a good fair amount of the other 2. I really think that fundraising is all about relationships. I am not going to be able to guilt somebody into giving. And if I do, I'm sure not going to be able to get them to give again. The great thing about working at a place like Oklahoma Christian, people love this place so much that when they hear what the needs and opportunities are, they want to get involved. And I'll tell you, we have probably a dozen donors who make significant sacrifices and have really changed this place in dramatic ways. Now, I say a dozen, but the reality is we have 1,000 donors, we have thousands of donors who make gifts that make this a better institution and a stronger institution. One of the things that's very easy about asking for money for Oklahoma Christian is I know that I'm asking for a cause that is much greater, much stronger, and much better than myself. I'm not asking for me. I am asking for the students that are here and the students that will come. And because people love this place and admire this place, and because it's changed lives and they have either experienced that personally or they have seen that in others, they want to step up and help. And it's a very humbling thing.
Very good. We're just got a couple more questions.
Okay.
What kind of impact, this is probably the most controversial, even if it's controversial, but what kind of impact is the new federal health care law having on Oklahoma Christian?
You know, we're pretty disappointed and obviously are opposed to some of the requirements that are being placed on private and faith-based institutions.
We'll get into that here in a second.
Sure.
That part of it.
Dr. Allison Garrett, our Vice President for Academic Affairs, who was a long-time general counsel and a high-ranking officer for Walmart, and has done then other things before coming to OC, actually went to Capitol Hill and testified on this and was very articulate on this. But, you know, there is a role for government. I mean, we need government playing its proper and appropriate role. But when government begins to overreach, when it begins to intrude in areas that, frankly, it shouldn't be in, it causes all sorts of problems. And this is an area that we oppose the government's involvement, certainly in some of the requirements that they are placing on faith-based institutions.
What's the cost curve effect been for you lately as far as healthcare costs? You know, for a lot of folks, it keeps on going up.
And it has here at Oklahoma Christian as well. One of the things that we have institutionally, we made the decision years ago, and every year we revisit it and we have stayed with it, is we don't want to be in the business of providing a salary increase to our faculty and staff with the one hand, and then taking it away with the other hand by putting more and more of the health care costs on our community members. We have maintained a very high level of support for the health care coverage that our faculty and staff has, and it has gone up and up and up, and it continues to do so. We're trying to find some creative ways to help reduce the cost, but it's important to us that we continue to provide this in very significant ways for our faculty and staff. But it has been an upward trajectory. It's been pretty steep.
Yes. And you mentioned it briefly, but is there anything more you'd like to say on the issue of the federal government and religious liberties? You know, that's been a big topic around the country the last few months.
Well, with regard to the federal government and religious liberties, this institution was founded in 1950 by members of the Churches of Christ. And for our entire history in Bartlesville and here in the Oklahoma City, Edmond area, we have remained close to our Church of Christ roots. And we're going to remain close to our Church of Christ roots. The majority of our students come out of Church of Christ backgrounds. Most of our alums are out of the Church of Christ background. But we're also going to have open doors. I mean, we know that we're attractive to lots and lots of people because they get a first-class educational experience in a very safe, appropriate, and spiritual environment here. And so we want our doors to be open to virtually everybody that can add to our community. Religion and being spiritual and developing as a university, but also on an individual basis, spiritually, is always going to be very, very important to us. We're not going to leave that. And so this is always going to be an issue that we're going to be focused on and concerned with.
One last question. What do you do to avoid leadership burnout?
That is a great question. There really are several things that I do to avoid burnout in general. I do try to run regularly, but I also spend time every day in spiritual thought and prayer and Bible reading.
Kind of some solitude?
I do, yeah. I get up, it seems like the older I get, the earlier I get up in the morning. And there's some upside to that and there's some downside to that. But part of the upside is I have some private time to myself. I read my Bible every day. I'm reading through the Bible this calendar year with an app on my iPad, and I just love it. Spend time in prayer for my family and friends and this institution as well. And then I just try to sit and listen, frankly, as well. Also, to avoid leadership burnout, I do talk to a lot of folks. I really trust the people that I get the chance to work with daily here at Oklahoma Christian. I've got some great, great folks, and I understand that when I gather this group together, I am not the smartest person in the room. And I think there is a lot of wisdom in the crowd in this particular case. And so, to avoid bad decisions or mistakes, I make sure that I talk to a lot of folks, people that I really trust, with issues that we have or things that I'm thinking about. And I find that I always learn in those situations.
Great. In closing, is there anything else that you'd like to touch on?
I tell you, Oklahoma Christian has really been blessed since 1958 to be here in this community. I don't think there is a better place to be than right there between Edmond and Oklahoma City. I mean, two communities that are, the trajectory is steep. We're blessed to be here, and we don't take it for granted as well. Also, as we're moving into the NCAA over the next few years, I'm looking forward to the Oklahoma Christian Eagles having the opportunity to play the University of Central Oklahoma Broncos down here and up there in a variety of sports. President Betts and I have visited a little bit. I know our athletic director, Curtis Jans, is talking with UCO's athletic director. I'm ready for a great rivalry across a number of sports to be born. And we will be competitive, and it'll be an exciting time. And I think it'll be good for our community.
Very good. Well, we are finished.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.